Okay, I do believe we are live. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the stream this morning. It's going to be a super casual stream today. Hopefully, you guys can hear me okay, and we're not too loud. What's happening, Tom? What's happening, Sky Tortoise Ferryman? What's happening, Wall? What's happening, Big John? What's happening, Tom? What's happening, Tony? All right, thanks for tuning in, you guys. If you're catching this stream on the replay, thanks for joining me. It's going to be a super casual stream today. We're going to be building a Eurorack system today, a medium Eurorack system from scratch. We're going to be putting in the modules in the system one at a time. We're going to be talking about each of the modules and the role that they play in the system as we put the case together. And then, barring any unforeseen circumstances, once the case is put together, we're going to power it up and we're going to make a little bit of music with the case today as well. Before we get started today, I just want to talk a little bit about my intentions with the stream and what do I mean when I say that this is going to be a beginner-friendly stream. Right off the jump, I want to say that I'm not saying that Eurorack is the way to go for beginners per se. I'm not necessarily saying that Eurorack is the way to go for you specifically. What we're doing today is we're going to put a system together made up of some pretty simple modules in the grand scheme of things, and we're going to put it together very slowly, and we're going to talk about the modules as we do this. And if you've got questions in the chat, I'm going to try to answer those on along the journey as well. That's what I mean by beginner friendly. I don't mean specifically that this is a system for beginners or for people who don't have any experience making music already. That being said, if you are a beginner to Eurorack, stick around because you're probably going to learn a lot on this stream. Okay, what we've got today is we've got a brand new empty case that is sitting here ready for us to use. I've also got a different version of the camera where I can actually put the live chat on the stream today as well. So we'll be kind of having that on and off potentially. Let me see if I can actually show you guys really quickly what we are working with behind the scenes. We've got the case. I've got all of the modules laid out here that we're going to be putting in the case. I've got power cables. I've got Eurorack cables spread around. I got a really big cup of coffee. So we are ready to do this. Okay. Now, let me go ahead and switch cameras and talk just a little bit about this case. I had this case custom built. Last year, I teamed up with the folks over at MOSAIC 1U to do some YouTube demo videos for their really sweet 1U modules. Now, as I started working on videos and actually, using these modules, I fell in love with these modules. They have so many different modules. If you, basically have any, space in a 1U row and you need, I don't know, just about anything, they've got a module that can kind of go in there and fill that slot. Anything from oscillators to LFOs to effects to filters to multiples, all of the tools that, you would really need that you might need like a little tiny spot for in your system. And I got thinking that, the more of these 1U modules that I could put together in a system, I could probably put quite a bit of things together using just these MOSAIC modules. But now, most of the cases out there don't have, a space for 1U, and if they do, there's only one row for 1U. I wanted to get, a lot of these 1U modules into a rack. So I had this case put together. It has 2 rows of 1U and just 1 row of the standard 3U. So we can get a whole lot of these MOSAIC 1U modules in the case. Now, before we get started, though, I want to show you. Oh, sorry, I'm not prepared for this. Okay, here we go. Right after I contacted the woodworker and got this case project underway, a company called XODES came out with these wonderful adapters. So where if you don't have even one 1U row in your case, you can still use these 1U modules. In fact, you can actually get 3 of these 1U modules, into one of these little adapters. Now, these adapters weren't available when I commissioned this case to be built, and I really wish they were, because this was a very expensive custom case to have put together. At the end of the day, I'm really happy with it though, and it is a absolutely wonderful and fabulous feeling case. All right. So if you don't have a 1U row, or if you just need, extra, room because your 1U row is filled up and you want to squeeze in some more 1U modules, that's still possible as well. Yeah, wall nose, excellent pluck string module, absolutely. Okay. So what we're going to do is this is probably going to take quite a bit of time. I often, try to, hurry things up on these live streams, just to keep things not, boring per se. But I'm really going to try to not do that today. And this is probably going to be quite a long stream as we one by one put these modules in the case. So thanks for your patience, everyone. I appreciate you hanging out. Hey, we got OMRI Cohen in the chat. I learned a really good portion of what I know about Eurorack from watching OMRI Cohen's videos, you guys. And if you're not subbed to his channel and you're into Eurorack, do me a favor, get over to OMRI Cohen's channel and give him a sub, because you absolutely need that kind of quality information in your life. All right, thanks for tuning in, OMRI. It's good to have you here. All right. Hey, what's happening, Douglas? What's happening, Peter? All right. Let's go ahead and begin. I think I don't really necessarily have the perfect plan, which, probably would have been better had I had, the perfect plan to get us started with. But I think what we're going to do is I think we're going to start with this upper corner right here, putting some of these modules in. And again, I'm going to stress this a lot. I'm going to go very slow today. I hope everybody can hear me. Hey, what's happening, Eric? If you guys need me to turn my voice up or down, please just let me know. And hopefully, as the case gets put together today and we start making some music, we'll adjust some levels as we need to. Douglas says he recently got a Roland Phantom 06 and a Peak. All right, well, congratulations, Douglas, on that. That is some serious synth power in your studio. He says it's changed his musical life dramatically. I can't imagine how it wouldn't. That is amazing power right there. All right, congratulations, Douglas. All right, let's switch back over to the no chat cam. And what I want to show you first is we're going to go ahead and put in 3 1U modules at the same time. And I've got a special cable that we're starting off with. Maybe not the best way to start, actually, because this is a special cable, not a standard cable. A standard power cable for Eurorack has, one end for us to plug into the power boards here, and then one end to plug into the module. But this particular cable is a special cable in that we can plug, just one end into the power board, and then it can power 3 modules from the same cable. I find this to be, pretty handy when using, when trying to power multiple of these small 1U modules. So what I'm doing is I am going to go ahead and plug the power cable into one of these headers on the power board. Let me go ahead and switch cameras and show you guys the details in here as best we can before we get started. So there's these little power headers. Each of these will allow me to plug in 1 module. Again, though, we've just plugged in this cable, which will allow us to plug in, 3 modules. I just need to be careful that I'm not overshooting the power specifications of these boards. I don't know if I can quite get in there. Not really, but there's 2 of these power boards in here, not just 1. So there's quite a bit of power connectors that we can use. Okay, fantastic. So what we're going to do is on the modules, each module will be labeled with a way that they want you to plug in that module. And all right, there we go. And these power cables, they'll have a very small, probably can't see that on the webcam, but maybe, they have a very small red stripe on one side of the cable. And it's essential that we line that up with the part of the module that accepts that. You probably can't see that on the stream either, but there is a little tiny mark right here on the side that, I really can't see that. Sorry, guys. That shows which direction to plug it in so that you know the red stripe is facing that direction. Each module, is a little bit different, but that's really, really essential that we get those lined up properly. Otherwise, we could have, issues with the power. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and plug in the next module. Okay. And so, right, then when we get these plugged in, I will talk about what the modules are. All right, just want to make sure I don't plug anything in incorrectly because I'm trying to go too fast or something silly like that. All right, we got one more here. Just going to line up the red stripe on the module, on the cable with that little indicator line on the module. All right, and again, like I said in the beginning, we're going to be going slow this whole journey. If you want to hang out during the whole journey, might be a good idea to grab yourself a cup of coffee or something, because this is probably going to be a long one. Okay, so here we have 3 modules now that have been plugged in, and what we've got here is we've got an LFO, we've got a plucked string voice module, and we've got a low-pass filter. Now, it's going to be a little bit awkward discussing this case because we're not really putting things in like in a specific order per se. We're just going to kind of fill in the case. But an LFO module is going to allow us to have some modulation in our system, really, really important. The plucked string is going to give us a wonderful plucked string, voice to actually make melodies with. And a low-pass filter here I've got so that I can run the plucked string into that, and we can filter the string if we need to. Okay, I'm not screwing anything in just yet, and you'll see why in just a moment. I noticed yesterday while testing this out that I kind of have to finesse the rails a little bit. So maybe getting like a module screwed in the middle to start with will help the screws line up a little better with the modules on the side, if that makes any sense. Douglas asks, have I played the Yamaha MODX? I have not, but I've heard from people who have played it that it is absolutely magical, but I don't have any experience with that one personally. Excuse me while I get a sip of coffee here. Okay, the next module that we're going to be plugging in is an envelope module. This is an envelope generator module. This is an ADSR generator, so we've got attack, decay, sustain, and release. I send a trigger into this module, and it creates this envelope shape that we can then send to whatever we like in the system. I'm going to put it next to this filter because I want to be able to create an envelope shape to feed into this filter and create a nice enveloped filter sound on this plucked string module. What's happening, Martin? All right, thanks for tuning in. We're going to go ahead and get this one plugged in now. So I'm going to plug in the power cable to the next available header on the power board. Being very careful to seat that all of the way in as well. Now again, we're going to be very careful to line up the red stripe on the cable with the red stripe indicator on the module so that we get that lined up, correctly and we don't have any power issues. Next up, we've got another filter. Now, this is a state variable filter instead of a low-pass filter. A low-pass filter will allow me to filter out the high-frequency content from a sound, but this, let's see here, this state variable filter actually has a band pass, and it has a low pass, and it has a high pass. So you can get different type of filters out of that one module. We're going to go ahead and plug that in next using the next available power header. All right, I'm going to run the power cable up through here. And we're going to be very careful to line up the red stripe on the cable with the red stripe indicator on the back of the module. All right. Now that we're just about, I'd say halfway-ish, I think we can probably start trying to go ahead and screw some of these in. What's happening, Russ? Thanks for tuning in. All right, and what we're going to do is, let's see, I'm probably going to need to stand up and kind of hunker over this. Probably get my head in the shot here while unfortunately, my lighting is in such a way that this is just a little bit difficult to see. Bear with me, everyone. Okay. Come on. Maybe that one to start with then. Cool. And I'm not going to be screwing the modules in all 4 screws to every module today. Instead, we're going to be doing just 2 so that it won't take quite as long. Sorry if my head is existing in the shot for a very long time. I was concerned about, the potential of how difficult it was going to be to screw these in real time on the stream. Most of the cases that I have, I don't really have a lot of problems with the rails in those cases and screwing the modules in. This one seems, these rails seem like they might be a little bit more work than the rails in some of the other cases that I'm used to. But that second one went in actually like butter, so maybe we're good now that I've got that middle module lined up. All right, these are all going in like butter at this point. I'm not screwing them in 100% of the way yet, so we still have a tiny little bit of flexibility for shifting these. Yeah, Martin says some cool new modules at Superbooth. Absolutely. I'm particularly interested in, actually, now that you mention it, I'm particularly interested in the new audio interface module from Bifaco. It is a class-compliant audio interface in just 6 HP. It has 4 inputs and 4 outputs, and these are all what they call DC coupled, which means that not only can we send audio to and from anything we plug into that audio interface, like an iPad, but we can also send modulation, DC modulation signals like triggers, like gates, and like LFOs. I think that module would be really amazing for connecting a real-world system with MyRack on the iPad. That module might be making its way here at some point. All right. So now that we've got these in and presumably, lined up where we want them, I am starting to tighten these screws down a little bit more. We're about halfway through one row. All right, we're making pretty good time, actually. Cool. And let me just go ahead and take a second and check in with the chat because I haven't for a moment. Sorry, guys. Yeah, OMRI says those MOSAIC modules are a blessing. There's not enough 1U possibilities. I absolutely agree on both of those counts. I would love to see some more stuff in 1U. I just think that, depending on what you need, you can squeeze like just a little tiny something into a system like this. So handy. Okay, let's see here. Next up, we've got this module. This is called Sloth. And what this one is it's basically like a gentle moving LFO module. And to be honest with you, it's mostly just, going in this case because it fits in the space. It's a really small module. And you can never have like too much modulation per se. So we're going to go ahead and get this one in here as a bonus. It's sort of like a very slow moving and sort of random moving LFO module, the Sloth. All right. We're going to be very careful again to line up the red stripe indicator on the module with the red stripe on the cable. Okay. And let me go ahead and get that actually screwed in. Maybe. Come on, guy. Tiny little bit more space between there than I would like, but I think we'll be okay. Come on. Come on, little guy. Oh, for Pete's sake. This one's giving me a heartache. Let me switch the screw. Oh, by the way, what I'm using for screws here, what I'm using with my fingers and not a screwdriver, is these are just knurlies. They're a type of screw from a company called Bifaco, and they just have kind of like a little handle on the top of the screw, basically, so you can operate them with your hand. And again, excuse my head in the shop, please. Just trying to get this one screwed in, if possible. That's one thing about, cases. The rails that are in the cases, definitely have an impact on how easy or sometimes not easy it is to get your modules, screwed in. I think for the purpose of the live stream, we're just going to put one screw in this one today because it's sort of giving me a hard time. I'll get back to that one. But unfortunately, these rails are a bit fiddly, like I was saying, compared to some of the other cases that I've got, which is a little frustrating. But that is what it is. Okay, so currently we've got an LFO, we've got a plucked string, which is a voice. We've got a low-pass filter, so we can filter this plucked string. We've got an envelope, so we can assign an envelope to our filter. We've got another filter, so we can get more filtering happening, either high pass, low pass, etc. What we need now, though, is we need something to make some drum sounds. And I have another, let's see here. I thought I had another one of those cables here with the 3 on it that was ready to go, but it seems like I've either misplaced that. Let's see here. Here it is. All right, fantastic. Great. So I've got another one of the cables here that has 3 power supplies to this one. Just going to make it a little bit easier on us to power up these last 3 modules in the top row here. All right, we're going to go ahead and connect up the power ribbon cable to the header. Get that seated nice and firm and run the power cable up through. Yeah, Martin says that kick gain by Nobula also looks really nice. Yeah, it sure does. The sound on that is like pretty beefy with that built-in reverb. You can really, really crank that up and get some massive. I have a lot of kick modules here, so I'm not maybe gassing for that one as much as like some of the other ones. But man, definitely some cool stuff to be had with that one for sure. Okay, so we've got 3 more modules that we're going to go ahead and get in with this cable here, starting with a bass drum. So we can get some kicks. I'm going to be really careful and line up the red stripe on the cable with the red stripe on the module. I can't stress that enough. Most modules have like a reverse, I'm not sure exactly if I'm saying it right, but it's like a reverse polarity protection or something to that effect, where if you were, to plug in the cable upside down or backwards, that it wouldn't ruin your module or explode the cable or something to that effect. There's also a couple of little fuses here on the power board, which I'm assuming, their job would be to blow before it would maybe damage a module. But you really, really, really want to be careful because you'll get into some serious, fires and explosions if you don't plug things in correctly. Yes, I am speaking from experience. I did have one issue one time with plugging in cables wrong. It was with the large case, and I was actually, moving a whole bunch of modules around. I flipped the power back on, and the system from the inside, like from behind the modules, started smoking, and I was really freaking out. I switched the power off and found out what the problem was. I had, in fact, plug something in incorrectly, but it was really dramatic is what I'm saying. So you really want to be careful not to do that. Actually, I think I've put these in a little bit in the wrong. What am I doing here? I just need to, there we go. We got the bass drum, we got the snare drum. Come on, little. I don't think I attached these quite as efficiently as I could have. Let me see about fixing that. Yeah, okay. back in there. I gotta flip it this way, but then the mod is upward. I'll figure this out. Sometimes they're a little bit janky or a little bit tight fitting to get everything you need to fit exactly the way you need, but if you're just careful and don't push the cables too hard, you can probably get stuff worked around. Okay, and then this one again, this one is going to go, yeah, I don't like the way that's seating. I'm going to go ahead and use a different cable instead so that I'm not wrapping this cable around quite so much. Cool. So I'm just going to put in another cable here. All right. And I'm going to run this up through. Douglas says, have I heard the Tone Star modules from Studio Electronics? I don't believe I've heard any of their modules like specifically, but I know that Studio Electronics puts out some really nice synthesizers. Okay, let's see here. Let's see if we can get these modules screwed in. So we've got a bass drum module, we've got a snare drum module, and we've got a hi-hat module. So this is going to give us our drum sounds. I've also got a little bit of space in this row, and I believe we're going to go ahead and maybe add a spacer at this time to sort of fill in that extra space in the row. Let's see if I can get all these lined up perhaps. All right, that one seems to work just fine. Alright, and let's see about these modules now. Don't give us any problems. We just want to get on with the stream. Cool. Again, I'm not screwing these in, with all 4 screws. We're just using 2. The modules aren't going to try to escape during the stream per se, and it'll go a lot, faster today if we just do 2 on each instead of the full 4. That one's a little tight. I'm going to get a screwdriver on it. Yeah, cool. OMRI says you can never have enough filters. Yeah, amen to that. All right. So what I've got here on this top row is we do have 2 filters. The first filter here is this low pass filter, which I'm specifically planning to use with the plucked string module. And then I have this variable filter over here, which I'm probably going to be using mostly as a low pass filter as well. But I want to be able to run like the hi-hat and the snare drum into that one so that I can filter down the drums as necessary. Okay, let's take a quick pause here. Let's just tighten these a little bit. And let's talk about Eurorack systems in general and what I'm actually putting together here right now. What I'm putting together here right now is a little groove box. One of the things that makes Eurorack so interesting and enticing to me personally is you can really do whatever it is that you might want to do with Eurorack. If you want to build a really amazing custom synthesizer with like 6 oscillators, maybe one of those oscillators is a sample player with like 12 filters, and I mean, you can put together anything you want. It doesn't have to be a groove box where you're trying to make like complete, grooves in one box. It might only be a really robust drum machine, your Eurorack system. Maybe you want a Eurorack system just to play with samples, for instance, and the modules you might look into, would be sample-based modules. With this system here that we're putting together, and most importantly, wanted to have a lot of room to put these MOSAIC 1U modules in, like more than any of the other cases that I had at the time that I commissioned this case. But, also, I wanted to be able to have like a small sort of like a groove box where I could focus on some of the modules like a little bit more intensely than maybe when I'm working in a really large system. And also, I really wanted to get a way to utilize like as many of these, MOSAIC 1U modules as I could. Again, there was not these really awesome 1U adapters at a few months just, previously, which are really handy now, if you don't have a case that has 2 rows for lots and lots of 1U modules. Anyway, okay, let's start on the second row. But maybe before I do that, let's go ahead and just fire up the case and make sure no smoke and lasers, start pouring out of it. Okay, we've got it fired up. All the modules seem okay. We've got lights. Trigger the kick, trigger the snare, trigger the hat. Yeah, we're looking good. Going to make sure to trigger the envelope there. We're going to make sure to turn this off now when I'm plugging the rest of the modules in. We don't want to have this powered up while we're plugging things in. That would be very bad as well. Wall says, waiting on my new Akimi's Taiko from ALM. Yeah, that's going to be... he knows how good it's going to sound because it looks like he already had to send one back to get a second one. Jealous of that Akimi's Taiko wall. You're going to get some great sounds out of that for sure. Okay, let's start with the next row of modules. The first thing we're going to put in is the analog VCO oscillator from MOSAIC. And I really like this oscillator because it's just a standard analog oscillator, but it sounds really rich. It's really easy to use. We've got a sine wave, we've got a pulse wave or a square wave, we've got a triangle wave, and we've got a saw wave that will come out of this oscillator all at the same time. And what I like to do is I like to be able to run all of those waveforms into a mixer so that we can adjust exactly the sort of timbre that we're getting out of this module. And I can combine like a triangle wave with a square wave, or I can combine a sine with a triangle, that type of stuff, to get some, really deep bass sounds or some really biting lead sounds as well. I believe we're going to be using this module as a bass module today in today's session. Okay, I'm just being really careful to plug it in the right direction. Got the red stripe on the cable matching the red stripe indicator on the module. We're going to go ahead and slide that in. Again, just like with the top row, I'm not going to actually screw them in until we get about to the middle, where the rails are kind of starting to push aside, and spread a little bit. I think the screw holes on the modules will line up a little better that way. So, I just said I'd like to, being able to mix these sounds together. This is a 4-channel mixer module here. So I'm able to run all of these waveforms into this little mixer and then decide exactly how much of each waveform we are, getting out of this oscillator. We're going to go ahead and get another power ribbon cable here going. Okay. Making sure I get that in all the way. Whoops. And we're going to run this up and through. Okay, and we're going to make sure that the red stripe on the cable matches that red stripe on the module. I'm going to triple check that really. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and see about answering some questions in the chat. Douglas says, you talk about calling the system a groove box. What will be the main sequencer? It's going to be amazing, and we're getting to that. It's going to be the black sequencer from Erica Sense, and I will explain why I chose this one for this system in just a moment as well. So we've got the oscillator module with 4 waveforms. I've got a mixer next, so we can mix the amount of any of those waveforms. Coming up next is a low-pass filter module, so we can low-pass filter these. All right, let's go ahead and get another plug here. Not a plug, rather, but a power ribbon cable. And we're plugging this one in. Fantastic. Just being super careful to line up that red stripe every time correctly. All right. Kind of a good idea to like line it up, plug it in, and then just double check one last time just to be sure. Is my voice okay? Can you guys hear me okay? All right. Next up, after the filter, we've got a VCA, and a VCA is basically a voltage-controlled amplifier. And what that means is we're going to send our volume, a full volume, into this module here, but we're going to use an envelope shape, attack, decay, sustain, and release, an envelope shape to shape how the volume actually comes through for our analog oscillator here. So we can get like long kind of sustained bass tones, or we can get like really tight acidy plucks, or any combination of that stuff using the envelope generator and this VCA, voltage controlled amplifier. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug in another power ribbon cable. What's up, Tony? All right, vocal good. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. We're going to make sure that we get the red line on the cable facing the right way on the module, and all of we've got basically like 8 tiny little plugs on the back of these. Probably can't see that too great on these modules, so I just need to make sure that all of those, little plugs line up with the holes on the power ribbon cable. Triple check that. We've got it facing the right direction. Let's get one more module in, and then I'll try to start screwing these in for us as well. The last module that we're going to put in here, not last, but before we start screwing them in, is going to be that envelope generator. So it's the same as the envelope generator we have in the top row. It's got the attack, sustain, decay, and release. And basically, we just feed these modules a trigger signal and tell them when we want it to send out this envelope shape. And then we just route the shape of this envelope to anything in the system that we want to modulate. In this case, we're going to be modulating the envelopes on filters. All right. So we need another power ribbon cable here. Okay. Whoop. Come on through there. All right. These envelope generators from MOSAIC are really awesome. They can do like a long, slow envelope, or they can do like a fast and snappy envelope as well. Something that I really had to keep in mind, tying into what I was discussing earlier about this system, I really had to keep in mind like exactly what I wanted to be able to create musically with a system like this. Depending on, what type of modules you choose and you put in, that's definitely going to, that's the impact of what your system is about and what kind of, music or grooves you can make with that system. I wanted to be able to make, beats and also, bass lines and grooves. I wanted to be able to sample with this system as well, to be able to record samples directly into the system. And so I've chosen, my modules specifically to achieve these results. I've got it so we can have 4 different 4 voices, I believe, and then 3 drums, and then 2 slots for samples as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got like 8 channels here, I believe, of sound. We only have a 6-channel mixer, so I'm having to route a few multiple things into the same mixer. Having a little bit of trouble getting this in. I just think I need to push the rail a tiny bit as I'm screwing this up. Yep, that did it. And then once we get that screwed in all the way, that'll probably help the rest of them fit really nicely as well. Let's test that out. Yep, that's going right in. All right. So again, we've got an analog VCO, which is an oscillator for making sound. I'm able to route, any of these waveforms into a mixer. Come on, let's try a different one. And then I'm able to route the sound from that mixer into a filter, so we can filter that sound. Then we've got a VCA, which is going to be controlling the volume of this sound. And the VCA is going to be controlled by this envelope generator here. So we've got a full voice, and a pretty robust voice as well, because again, we can really combine these four waveforms in different ways. So this voice is a really sort of versatile and fun and thick and fat voice, all from these MOSAIC 1U modules. This was definitely something that I was really looking forward to in putting together, this case with the 2 rows of 1U to have this really solid, oscillator system right here, because this really sounds fantastic. Now, if you've already got, envelopes and mixers and filters and envelope generators rather in your system, this oscillator here is a fantastic addition to your 1U row just to get some extra sound. Absolutely. Okay, we got one. Get that out. There we go. All right, we're making pretty good progress here. What is it, 10:41? All right. I was estimating, I don't know, somewhere around an hour-ish that it might take to put these all in from scratch. So I think we're not doing too bad there. Thanks for hanging out with me, everyone. All right. What we've got next is we've got another little spacer module, because there's a couple of empty spots here where the modules don't quite take up all the space. Next up, we've got another mixer. This is the second 4-channel mixer. So this is going to allow me to mix together the volume of the snare drum and the volume of the hi-hats, and then run both of these through a filter. Like OMRI said, you can't have enough filters in the system, I really love using filters for shaping the tonality of my sounds. All right. So let's go ahead and plug in this 4-channel mixer. All right. I really think that the 4-channel mixer on its own is just an awesome addition to any setup too. I mean, I'm always trying to route, more sound sources than I have inputs on mixers. So a little, 4-channel mixer like this in your 1U row, oh my gosh, so handy. Okay, now we definitely need some effects in a system like this. I want to be able to make different genres of grooves. I want to be able to make things from like techno to drum and bass to even some down-tempo and ambient stuff. So we're going to need some reverb and we're going to need some delay. And what I've got here is I've got the mono reverb from MOSAIC, and we've got the variable delay from MOSAIC as well. So we've got these to be able to get some decent sounding effects in the system. Let me go ahead and get these plugged in. Whoops. Come on. All right. Just need that to go back around. This is something that I've wanted to do ever since I started doing Eurorack content on this channel, is to do a stream like this where we did everything in real time, completely from scratch. So for those of you who are hanging out, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate you being here today. All right. Again, if anyone has questions or comments, please feel free to drop those in the chat, and I will do my best to answer those. Let's see here. Actually, Douglas has got a great question here. He says he's got an Electron A4 MK2, and could it be a master sequencer for a small Eurorack system? As long as I don't have an A4 here, so I'm not 100% knowledgeable on it, but if it has MIDI out, then absolutely yes. It depends on how many channels of MIDI out you've got, and it depends on exactly what you want to do with your Eurorack system. For instance, if you want to have just like a really large synthesizer, you likely would only need one output, to control that. But if you're trying to do something like what we've got here in more of a groove box situation where you've got, multiple sounds, you might need, more than one MIDI channel to sequence all of that stuff. But you can definitely get like MIDI to CV converters that will convert a standard MIDI signal into the gates and triggers that are necessary for Eurorack, or the pitch information as well. Again, it really depends on what you want to do. For instance, if your Eurorack was just a giant machine of drum modules and samplers, it's likely that you would only need to just trigger those sounds, and you wouldn't necessarily need pitch and gate information, but just triggers. So MIDI to trigger module might, be something that you could run out of the A4, or like, another box that has channels of MIDI out, and then use that to sequence like rhythms and whatnot. But it just depends, the more you want to do with your system at the same time, then typically the more channels of MIDI you might need to sequence that out, depending on also if you're using internal sequencers in your system, which is also a really viable, thing to do to get, for instance, the black sequencer here has MIDI in and MIDI out that we can connect up with just a little dongle that plugs in and converts it to straight 5-pin MIDI. And then when I press play on this sequencer, it will start up something like the Digitact, or vice versa. I could run MIDI out from the Digitact into the little dongle here. And then when I press play on the Digitact, it could start this sequencer as well. So it kind of depends on what you've got in your system and what you want to do with it as well. All right, let's go ahead and get these modules screwed in here. Cool, we're back to the little spacer. See if we can find a spot for that. All right. Oh, that's interesting. Douglas says the chat display doesn't seem to move forward. I don't really know about that. This is the first time that I've had this little overlay on the screen that way. So if it's being weird, I apologize for that. Let's see here. Trying to read the chat as I'm trying to screw this in at the same time. But this one's giving me a little bit of a heartache here. Come here, you. Is that it? I think we're just going to leave that one with 1 for now. Maybe I'll come back to that in a moment. All right, there we go. Douglas asked, what do I think of the Syntact? So far, my experience with the Syntact has been all an absolute pleasure. My personal criticism of the box so far, and it's not really criticism, that's probably the wrong word to choose, but maybe they're like the feature that I wish was there that isn't there is the global compressor that we have in the Digitact. I really wish that the Syntact had that global compressor to help kind of just glue everything together. That being said, I think it's an amazing box that makes amazing sounds. I love the generators inside of the Syntact. I cannot stress this enough. Like I've been at sound design since like 1994, and the clap generator in the Syntact specifically is just magic, and it creates like just an immense variety of really cool clap sounds. Like that alone just. Oh my gosh, it's really, really nice. Like for instance, I have the Erica Sense Techno system over here that I picked up recently, actually, that I'm planning on using to make some, sound banks for the Digitact with and whatnot. But it has a clap module in it, okay? And it's just, it's a really basic clap module is the thing, and it only makes like just a couple of different timbres. I don't want to say that module's a letdown, but it is. It's kind of a letdown, that clap module in that Erica Sense Techno system. It's just really simplistic. But the clap generator in the Syntact, for example, is just magic, and there's a feature in the Syntact where you can just randomize the values of the sound generators, and so you can load up the clap generator and just randomize it, and just literally will spit out just different clap sounds after different clap sounds. And I mean, someone like me who's constantly, making sound banks and stuff, I'm constantly in need of new sound sources and ways to create new sounds from scratch. So yeah, so far I'm really enjoying the Digitact. My very first order of business with with the Syntact. Sorry about that. My very first order of business was to create hundreds and hundreds of sounds and record those out. And I'm currently making a refill sound bank for the Digitact using all sounds from the Syntact. So that might help people who have gas for the Syntact, and are sitting there with their Digitact to at least play with some of the sounds from the Syntact because it makes some fantastic sounds. That's what I think of the Syntact so far. Absolutely. Hey, Quasi MIDI Gang in the house. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Let's see. How does it track the oscillator? Are you talking about this one, OMRI? So far, my experience with it has been fantastic. It tracks really well. Martin says, could he use a passive attenuator going between a sequencer and a quantizer module before going to a VCO? Yes. Yes, absolutely. You would. That's exactly what you would do. Yeah, I have a module from Bifaco that I think is really, really handy. What's the name on this guy actually? I should know this. It's just their dual attenuverter basically, but it has an offset and it has an attenuverter, and I use that with my quantizers to sort of raise the bass pitch, either to more of like a treble frequency for a lead or more of like a bass frequency, and then you can kind of use the attenuator to sort of get the pitches more in line as you're feeding them to the quantizer. Speaking of quantizers, I know we're kind of geeking out, but that's sort of the whole purpose of this stream, really. And I'm feeding those into the Tenderfoot Electronics Quad quantizer. I've looked at all of the quantizers on Modular Grid countless amounts of times, and I've tested out a few other ones as well, but the Tenderfoot Quad quantizer is like the quantizer for me. I can't live without it. I don't necessarily always need to quantize 4 things, but it just works so well and I just love it. So okay, cool. Let's take a look at what we've got here so far. We've got both of the top rows plugged in. Everything is connected to power, and I should be able to power it on, and we should get no smoke, no lasers, no pirates, no bullshit. Let's find out. Okay. Everything is looking good. No smoke, no fire. So we're going to go ahead and turn it back off at this time and put the rest of the modules in. Let's go ahead and start, I think, from the left-hand side on this row. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by putting in this mixer first. This is a really awesome mixer, and I think it's probably the most robust mixer for the size. I want to say this is like 24 HP. It's got 6 channels. It's a stereo mixer, and it has 2 effects sends as well. So we can pan the channels, and we can send anything we want to an effect as well. So we can send anything, in our case, to this reverb or to this delay. And that's super key for being able to make, lots of different kinds of patches. Let's go ahead and grab a power cable. I think I'm going to be just a couple of power cables short. Going to need to dig someplace to grab them, I think, maybe. But let's go ahead and get this one in. Going to plug in the ribbon cable here. And for those of you who are hanging out for the music, we're going to try to create some music with this case in just a few moments. So please hang around for that as well. All right. Cool deal. This is from Blue Lantern Modules. It's the Stereo Sir Mix-a-Lot. I also wanted to mention that there is a underneath this video in the video description is a link to this exact case on Modular Grid. If you want to, click on that and actually get a more close-up view of the actual modules that are in the case, or learn any bits of information about any of those modules or whatnot, that information is underneath this video, as well as I believe a link to checking out more of the MOSAIC 1U modules from Perfect Circuit, and as well as a link, I believe, to that 3U to 1U adapter module as well. If not, if there's not a link to that one, I'm getting those from Mission Synths in San Francisco. Cool. Okay, so the next module we're going to be putting in is a high-pass filter module. This one is from a company called ShackMat, and what it is it's basically two high-pass filters at the top that take us down 18 decibels of attenuation at 30 hertz, 30 hertz or hertz, not kilohertz rather, but 30 hertz. And what that is like that's really, really sub frequencies that the ear can't hear and that speakers can't really represent anything below about 30 hertz. So what we're doing is we're lowering and kind of removing some of that like uber sub content that doesn't need to be in the mix, and that allows us to get a louder mix overall and more headroom overall and a little bit of a tighter and more focused low end. This is the ShackMat high pass filter. It's very specific for doing this exact kind of high pass filtering. It has that setting for 30 hertz. And it also has an input at 100 hertz where it will, remove a little bit of those low frequencies. We're going to make sure that we plug it in the correct way. And again, I'm not going to screw any of these modules in until we get about to the halfway point and we're kind of pushing the rails open a little wider. Let's see. Next up, we've got another high-pass filter, actually. This one is from Bear Modules, and it's got 3 different levels of high-pass filtering in it. So 3 different levels of how much low-frequency content we can remove here. And this is a passive module, meaning it doesn't need to be plugged in. What we're going to be doing with that one is we're going to be using it to remove any potential like low frequencies from getting into our effects, and we're going to be keeping our effects really clean using that high pass filter. Okay, next up we've got the MSCL from WMD Devices. This one is a sidechain compressor module, and it allows us to, sidechain the kick drum against the bass. So if I want to do some techno type of grooves in here where the bass line is just and the kick still needs to just punch through that, this sidechain module, which will allow us to do that by allowing us to set up where we can duck a little bit of the bass line every time the kick drum hits, so it will punch. This is a really, really important module to my workflow, these high pass filters and this side chain module, so that we can keep our low frequencies nice and tight and focused and not get too muddy or overwhelming in the low end. Okay. Make sure I plug this in the right direction. All right. Cool. Next up, all right, we have the sample drum from Electronisounds, and this is quite possibly like my favorite sample module at this time. I also have a really, really robust sample module, but that's not really appropriate for a smaller system such as this. I also have way back over here, I have the assimilator, which is like from Rossum, which is like a big 8-channel Eurorack sampler that allows me to sample into it as well, and even play back stereo samples, which is really cool. But the sample drum from Electronisounds is really, really special in that it will allow us to sample directly into the module. So I can grab like any of my synthesizers in here if I want to and record, sounds into here that we can use either melodically or, as more drum sounds. The digital to analog converter in the sample drum is a 12-bit digital to analog converter. So it doesn't sample in super hi-fi resolution. It samples in 12-bit audio. Now, those of you who've been, making music for quite some time, or maybe a little bit old school, might hear that number, 12-bit, and get a little bit excited. Some of the, really classic and really sought-after drum machines of years gone by sort of have that magic sauce because the drums are 12-bit drums and a little bit crunchy and a little bit punchy. So to be able to sample into a module and get that 12-bit sound, it's not like it's super dramatic, it's not like it's super lo-fi, but it is. It's a little bit more, lo-fi than, say, sampling in 16-bit or 24-bit. You can definitely hear a difference, and it definitely, brings something to the sound. I'm really looking forward to sampling, more drums into this module here. It has 2 slots, and we can load quite a few samples into each of those slots, and then we can use either the knobs on the front of this to change back and forth as to what sample is playing, or we can use like CV modulation that we're sending the module from other modules in this case to decide, what samples are playing there. So another reason why I've chosen the Electronisounds black sequencer as the main sequencer for this case is that it has these extra modulation outputs. And if I'm not mistaken, that's going to give us some really, finite control over picking what sample is being played back in the Electronisounds sample drum. All right, so we've got that one plugged in now. Fantastic. As a sample maker, I just can't really see myself using a system that doesn't allow me to either load samples into it or sample audio into it. That's a really big, part of my workflow personally. All right, let me see if I can just catch up with the chat real fast. Douglas says, wouldn't an Impress Zoya be more efficient choice for effects? Yeah, sure. You could definitely get a lot of effects out of that. The problem is that I'm only using 2 1U slots for effects in this case, and we really don't have the room. Every single module that we put in means there's something that has to get left out, basically. Would the Zoya be fantastic for effects? Absolutely, but I also have a lot of other modules that would be fantastic for effects as well. You can only fit so many modules into each case. And yeah, so I had to go specifically for just these, pretty pedestrian effects in this case because we don't have the space for a whole bunch of other ones. Let's go ahead and start filling in from the right-hand side now. I'm going to go ahead and I believe we have 2 ready. Yeah, cool. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get the sequencer plugged in and situated. So this sequencer is a really special sequencer. It will allow us to do like magic randomizations so that it will come up with patterns for us that are in key with the, the melodic patterns that we're making. It can control 4 different sounds, and we're going to be using this for not only melodic content, but for also sequencing, rhythm and melodic content as well out of the sample drum here. I just need, let's see, how many more modules do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have 2 cables only. I'm going to need to track down some power cables out of another box. We need a total of 3 more power cables. I've taken them all out of this one. Do I have an extra one down here? I believe we do. All right. Bear with me, everyone, as I go into the cable reserves of this other case hiding out in the back of the room here. All right, fantastic. And we've got another 3 cables, power cables to use. Whoop. It gets a little bit difficult to see as we squeeze in some of these last ones. Come on. There we go. All right. Martin says that's the quantizer of choice for him as well. Yeah, I just love that quantizer. It just works is the thing. Okay. All right. Hey, what's happening? Toballusion says, did you check out the new Space Echo Re 2 and Re 202? No, I haven't. I'm pretty solid on effects right now. I've been really having a hard time fighting the gas. I just got that Syntact in. Um, let's see here. Okay. Let's go ahead and continue with these modules. We've got another LFO now. So this is the 2HP LFO module. The cool thing about this one is that it actually has two outputs. So we can get like, your main, output here like square wave, triangle wave, the kind of LFO shapes you would imagine. But then there's like a slightly variation version of that waveform coming out the second output of this module. So we've got two LFOs in one really tiny module. And also, we've got this LFO module up here. So we've got a little bit of modulation available in this case to us as well. All right. So we've got the LFO. Next up, we've got let's see here, a passive multiple. What this one is, let me see if I can get a little closer with the other camera. What this one is it's a passive module again, meaning it doesn't require any power. And basically, we just plug in a signal here, and it duplicates that signal out to the, to the pots beneath it. So we can take 4 signals here and get multiple copies of any of those signals that we might need to, send throughout the case to other modules. So like if I want to send the clock signal from our sequencer to multiple destinations, I can use that if I want to. Or if I want to send an LFO to multiple destinations, I can use this to duplicate that LFO signal as well. Now, if we don't want, a full range LFO, like a full huge waveform moving and modulating our modules, then we can use an attenuverter to get a smaller amount, like to attenuate the amount of the LFO modulation that is being sent throughout the case. And for that, we're going to be using the Noise Engineering Sync Deferro, which is basically just, we're going to plug a signal in, adjust the amount of that signal, and then there's an output for that signal. So if we turn it all the way to the left, we get a 0 signal, and the more we feed it up, the more that signal goes through to the output. It's a really important module for controlling the modulation signals in our system. Okay, make sure I got that plugged into the right power direction there. And then next up, we've got another oscillator. This is the Osiris module from Modbap Modular. I worked with Corey over at Modbap to do some custom wave tables for this modulator. I did a pack of 128 wave tables for this pack. Oh my gosh, it was a really big job. But those are available free on the Modbap modular website. So if you've got the Osiris module, you can go download some free wave table expansions for it and get even more sounds out of this module. I love this module. It's got an envelope built right into it, so we don't need to have an external envelope to control the volume of this sound. Just triple checking that I've got it plugged in the right way. I think I don't. I in fact did not have it plugged in the right way there. I'm really glad that I double checked, and I want to stress that enough. After you have it plugged in, just look one more time and just verify that that stripe is where you want it to be and where you think it is, because you want it to be there. What's happening, OB? All right. Got my little studio buddy over here. He can't quite get comfortable today. Okay, next up, we've got another sequencer. This is a rhythmic sequencer. This is the DOT sequencer from D&I Pro, and it's a 3-channel sequencer. It can be like 3 Euclidean channels, or we can put the triggers in on the dots, on the steps rather, where we would like them to be. So I'm planning, the goal here, hopefully, this one is a little bit hard for me to use sometimes, so hopefully I'll get a little bit more time with it and get better at using it, having it in this case. But this we can use to trigger our kick drum, our snare drum, and our hi-hat. Well, we can use our sequencer on, this side to sequence the melodic parts and also the samples from the Erica Synths sample drum. So let's go ahead and plug this one in. I love it when they have the, the little header on the back, so there's no possibility of you plugging the cable in the wrong direction. But frankly, most modules don't have that built in. Okay, lastly, we've got the mutes module from DivKit, and this just allows me to plug signals into it and then turn those on and off with these switches here. A really easy way to like just be able to mute drums on and off in real time. We're going to go ahead and plug this one in. All right, whoops. And I've also got a tiny little 1U blank that sort of fills this hole here, if it'll fit in, and it sort of does. We're probably going to need to put that in like last as we move all these modules around and try to screw them in, because we have not screwed anything in on the bottom row yet. Hey, what's happening, Connor? Thanks for tuning in. All right, let's see if we can't get this going. Cool. And Vincent's video vision says, is the case homemade? I don't know if any case laid out like that. It isn't homemade. I'm not actually a woodworker here, but I hired a woodworker to have the case custom made. It is a custom case specifically to give me 2 rows of this 1U format, so I could get as many of the MOSAIC 1U modules into this system as I could, because I really like using them. I think they're, really versatile to use, and I really also like their drum modules. I think they're really fat and punchy sounding. We're going to try to get this LFO screwed in here. Giving me a little bit of problem lining up the rails. See if I can maybe coax it. Come on, guy. Did I get it? I thought I had it. Yeah, that's it. All right, cool. Let me just borrow the screwdriver because it's getting a little tight there. All right, fantastic. So next up, we've got the quad passive multiple. Again, this one doesn't need power because it is a passive module. I wonder if we can, let's see here. No, I don't. Okay. All right, that one's going right in. We're getting closer and closer to starting to make something. What we're going to put together today is going to be a little bit of bass music, I think. I know a lot of people would probably say techno, techno, techno. And that's why we're not going to do techno today. We're going to start off with this system with something else, I think. We'll see how that plays out. That may come back to bite me in the butt. Yeah, Wall says he has a bit of gas for the sample drum. Well, my friend, you may or may not want to stick around then, because what we're going to do, hopefully, with the sample drum in a moment is probably not going to help your gas for the sample drum. I actually think so far, playing with quite a few different sample modules, that the sample drum is my favorite of the sample modules that I have played with. Obviously, it's a bit larger than, say, the Tip Top Audio 1 sample players, but those don't actually, you can't sample into those. You can only load samples into them from the SD card. And being able to, actually record samples into this module is, I think a pretty nice feature. And we're also able to do some really interesting sample slicing, which we're going to do hopefully in just a few moments as well. And you can't do that on the, the Tip Top 1 sample module. All that one can do is just, playback samples. I'm trying to get this one screwed in, but it doesn't really want to cooperate. But we really need this one screwed in for sure, because it is, the switches, and it will need to be not moving, that's for sure. see, maybe I can use the screwdriver to sort of help me get it in this time. It's really, I'm going to try a different screw rather. I'm just about out of knurlies as well. My stock of knurlies is going to need to be replenished. Okay, cool. There we go. That's coming in nicely. Perfect. Nice and tight there. Whoops. Yeah, Wall says he's not a massive fan of the tip-top audio stuff. I'm not really a massive fan of their, stuff either, but I do have quite a few of those drum modules because as a sample-based guy, I really need lots of slots to load samples and stuff. And their sample modules are awesome. Other than you can't, sample into them. But for just a one, just a one, sample player, they're pretty convenient. Again, nothing like what, the sample drum can do, though, but the sample drum is quite a bit higher in price and takes up a lot more room in your system as well. Okay, fantastic. So we've got everything on this side screwed in and ready to go. We've got just a few more. We've got just a few more knurlies left. I think we're going to just barely squeeze this in. All right, and we're about to start making some music. Whoops. For those of you who know what plinko is, I always compare like dropping a screw when you're trying to screw something in to like plinko, because it just kind of goes down and you never really know where it's going to end up. For those of you who don't know what plinko is, I probably sounded like an idiot just then, but all right. Having a little bit of trouble getting this one screwed in. So we're going to pull these aside so that I can manipulate it a little more. I'm going to have to get my head in the camera probably. Sorry, everyone. It needs a little. Oh, come on. All right. There we go. Just needed to push the rail up a tiny little bit to get the holes to line up there. No worries. All right. So then the bear next. I should have had background music. You guys, I apologize. Now it's all quiet. I should have had some sort of background music set up during this so we could have something playing. Oh, I didn't think it through. I thought everything else through, but the background music. Sorry, everyone. But we'll start making some music on our own here in just a moment. So again, thanks for your patience, everyone, and thanks for hanging out. Looks like we've been going for about an hour and 20 minutes. All right, that's not too bad. We're just about got all of these modules in. It's like I'm running out of screws completely here. So what we're going to do is use a regular little Eurorack screw instead of a knurly on these last two modules. I really prefer, oh, whoops, that one's a hex screw. I have some other ones sitting here, I believe. Are these hex as well? No. Cool. Whoops, I didn't actually put our spacer in. I'll put that aside, and if we need to, I can go back to that later. But for today, I think we're going to not worry about it. It doesn't want to screw right in if I just move that rail up a little. Come on. No? Alright. Well, let me see if I can get a different angle. Did I just... Come here. Now we've lost the screw. Okay, I got the screw. And let me just take a look here. I believe we're close. I just think it needs the rail pushed up a little. Come on. I really want that one to screw in, but it doesn't want to. I think for now we're going to pass on that one. Maybe I'll just tighten the bottom one a A little more. All right. Now, normally, if I was on my own, I would sit here and just, fuss with it and fuss with it and fuss with it. But being as though it's a live stream and all that, we're going to just skip a few of them. All right. Lastly, we are putting the mixer in. And hopefully we're going to get this screwed in as well. I'm not going to tighten it all the way so that we still have a little bit of maneuverability for the other screws. All right. Cool. Let's see if I can get maybe one more in down here where the plugs are. Fantastic. All right, then. Can I get that last corner with this last knurly, maybe? Yeah. All right. So there we have it. We've got all of these modules plugged in. So we've got some drums. We've got some ways to make melodic sounds using the MOSAIC oscillator, and as well as the MOSAIC plucked string oscillator. We've got a sample module here, which can load samples off of an SD card, and we can sample directly into it. We've got a little sequencer for the drums. We've got a sequencer for the melodics and for the samples. I'm going to go ahead and fire it on now. And hopefully everything that needs to light up will be lighting up. And we will be good to go. All right. Now, I'm really not that familiar with this sequencer because I haven't been using it, but I believe I can load. Whoops. Just going to try to. I thought I had something ready to go for us, but I guess I don't. Okay, that's fine. Let me just get this into the right almost there. Again, I have a problem with this exact sequencer. I'm not super great at it, so I apologize for the. I knew this one was going to give me a hard time today. Just trying to get it. Is it there? Yeah. Okay, cool. We'll just go ahead and start with that for now. Okay, so cool deal. What we've got here is we're ready to go. We can go ahead and set our BPM using the sequencer over here. This is going to be our master sequencer today. I'm going to start us off at 140 BPM. Hey, what's happening, Andy? Thanks for tuning in. All right, we're going to start attempting to patch up some sound. It's probably going to take me a couple of minutes to get everything situated volume-wise. So bear with me as we try to get that going. And again, if you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to ask in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer those along the way. Douglas says, have I used Bitwig Studio because it has native support for CV with some supported interfaces? I did know that. People have actually been calling, like in my circle or whatever, like they've been calling Bitwig the Techno DAW or the Eurorack DAW because I guess it has some really neat features specifically for using with, Eurorack and for making techno and whatnot. But I haven't. I'm really mostly just into the hardware these days. And if I am using the computer, it's just Ableton, Okay, let's see here. The first thing we want to do is we want to get our drum sequencer in time with the main sequencer. So what we need to do is we need to take the clock output and we need to route that into the clock input of this sequencer here. So I'm just taking our main clock signal, which is this speed of, what the patch is going to run at, and I'm sending that into this sequencer here so that these two sequencers can be in sync with each other. This sequencer will also know when need to know rather when the downbeat is, and that's the reset signal. So every time I press play, it knows that that's the 1, for example. Our sequencer has like a stop and it's got a play, so when I press play, it's got the other sequencer now that has started up, and when I press stop, it stops that sequencer from going. What we're going to do is we're going to use the D&I Pro sequencer here to sequence our drum sounds. And what we're going to use, let's see here, is we're going to use this little DivKids mutes module. We're going to run our drums in here so that at any time we can turn those drums on or off very simply here. There's also a mute function that's built into the sequencer, but I find these switches are just always here. I don't have to fish in any menus to get to them, and it's just really, really easy to use that way. So what we're going to do is just take some tiny patch cables. I'm going to plug the output of 1 into the input of 1 over here, and I'm going to do the same thing for the output of 2. I'm going to plug that into the second input of our mute module, and I'm going to take the third output of this sequencer and I'm going to route that to the third input here. Now I just need to route these outputs into these drum modules over here, and when this sequencer sends out a trigger, it will trigger the drum sounds. So what I need is I need a cable now to go from the output here to the input of our kick drum. So we'll need a slightly longer cable. I think this one will probably be the right cable for that. Fantastic. And now we can even see on the module here, it's starting to light up as it's receiving a trigger signal from this sequencer here. If anyone has any questions or if I'm going too fast, please just let me know and I can try to slow it down in the chat. It's not really necessarily about, how to patch a system today, as it more is, about the process of, these are the modules that I chose. This is why I chose them, so that we have melodic content, and then we also have rhythmic content, and then we also have a module to load samples into or to sample into directly. I think that creates a system that we can create lots of different genres of material with, per se, and that's sort of the goal of this system here. I think I can use a smaller cable, actually. We're going to run this out from the second output, so for the snare, into the trigger input for the snare. And then lastly, we're going to do that same thing, the third one here, and into the trigger input of the hi-hat module. And so now we can see these modules, lighting up when they are receiving trigger signals from the D&I Pro sequencer. But we're not hearing anything yet because nothing is actually, routed into our main mixer. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to connect up our mixer to the Digitact. And what I've done, whoops, I'm not on the right camera there. What I've done is I've got the Digitact over here, which has just a couple of external inputs on the back so that I can route the audio out from this into the Digitact. Now, why would I want to do that? We're not really worrying about the Digitact today, and we're not trying to sync up these boxes together or anything like that. But being as though this is just a stereo mixer, it doesn't have one dedicated knob that I can just grab and turn the volume up or down, and that would be really handy to have during a live stream, and the Digitact does in fact have exactly that. So we're using the Digitact as a way to be just sort of like a master volume today. And also I do plan on using these in connection with each other at some point, and that's gonna hopefully allow me to get a sync between the two. I can just take the MIDI out from this sequencer and connect it to the Digitact. But we've got a couple of cables coming out of the back of the Digitact, and I'm going to just route those into the outputs of our mixer here. So channel 1 out, that's like our left output. Just going to route that, and then we're going to plug in the right output. So now the mixer is now connected up to the Digitact, and anything we route into this mixer will be sent into the inputs of the Digitact. We'll need to adjust levels as we start getting everything going. Now, You may remember that we talked about this high pass filter a little while ago, and how it can remove some of the really sub frequencies from like bass signals. We're talking frequencies that are now below 30 hertz. So these are frequencies that are too low for the human ear to hear, and really too low for like speakers to recreate. And to have those frequencies in our music just sort of eats up the headroom and makes that low end of our music a little bit muddy. And we really don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to route the kick drum directly into this high pass filter. And what I'm going to do is I've been testing out some new right angle cables. Actually, let me show you this as well. I've been testing out some new right angle cables from Luigi's Modular Supply, and he's making a brand new line of right angle cables here. And I've got a whole bunch of different lengths of these cables here, so I can figure out like which ones might be the most appropriate lengths for someone to use in their Eurorack system and whatnot. So we're going to go ahead and maybe try to get a couple of these cables in use in the session today. Luigi makes some fantastic cables that I highly recommend, and I have a link beneath this video as well to where you can check out some of his cables. These new cables are right angle cables, and they are the smallest right angle cables that are in existence right now. They're just tiny. If you compare them, let's see if I can grab one actually, to a regular sized right angle cable. I don't know if you can see that on the stream, probably not, but they're quite a bit smaller in size, and they can really get into some tight spots. Fantastic cables. And he's going to be having these ones for sale really soon. These are the M-Par right angle cables, and so far they're just fantastic from the testing that I've done with them. We're going to take, let's see, I need a shorter one, it looks like. Again, this is what I'm trying to figure out, is like which of these might be the, most useful length for Eurorackers. And I think this cable right here is going to be the perfect, absolutely perfect length to route the kick drum out into the input of this high pass filter. So we're removing those really low frequencies now on the kick drum just beneath 30 hertz that are, again, pretty much too low, for the human ear to hear, and pretty much too low for speakers to represent. We're going to go ahead and plug this now into input 1 of the mixer, and now we should be able to start getting some actual audio going. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take channel 1 and channel 2 on the mixer, and I'm going to turn these up all the way, and then we're going to very gently start turning up the level here on this kick drum. Okay, let's see. 1, 2. Now I'm messing around with the digitact here. I'm trying to make sure I don't. Yeah, there we go. Gonna need to pan all of. I had them pan to the left. So going to need to pan all. This is a stereo mixer, so we've got control over the, left and right, stereo field here. We can get this kick drum here starting to come through just a tiny little bit. And what I want to do awesome. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop the sequencer real fast. And what I want to do is I want to try to tune that kick drum. I work, pretty slow. For those of you who are expecting, amazing techno to come out of this system in 5 minutes, it's probably not going to work that way because I'm a lot more of a sort of a slow and methodical kind of putting things together sort of fellow. Those of you who've been, watching my channel for any amount of time probably know that already. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to tune this kick drum, okay? I like to write in the key of F, so we're going to try to tune the kick drum into the note of F. This is just a really cheap guitar tuner. It's from Donner. I think they're like a Canadian type of Behringer company or something like that. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to run an input cable directly into this that has a 1/4 inch on one side and, you know, the Eurorack size on the other side. I'm going to plug this into the output of the kick drum, and I'm going to trigger that kick drum. And it doesn't say anything. Well, that's a bummer. I've used this before, but now I get on the live stream and it's a no-go. Oh, come on. Don't be a no-go. Okay, so there we have a note showing up as like a C sharp, and there's a note showing up as an E. And then if I just click it a tiny little bit more, I'm trying to get it to be an F. And I've got it, looks like an F sharp. And there we have it. I've got it lighting up as an F. Can you see that? So even though we can't hear it, it doesn't matter if we can hear it. I'm just, you know, running the output directly into this tuner, trying to get the tuning on that kick drum where I want it. So it looks like now it is tuned to the note of F. Let me get this tuner out of the way a little bit here. And we can plug the output back in and hear what that sounds like. Hopefully this sounds really fantastic. Maybe bring that decay down a little. So this module is a bass drum module. We can have, you know, really tame, mellow type of sound, all the way up to that really overdriven, distorted type of sound. Now what I'm going to do here is be quiet for a moment, and I'm going to adjust the level going out to the stream here. I think that probably just got a lot louder. So please tell me if that is now too loud, because this is probably the volume that we're actually going to be sending out to the stream now that we're starting to make some music. So please let me know if this gets too loud or if it's not loud enough and you can't hear anything. Let's go ahead and get the kick drum, let's get the snare drum and the hi-hat rather going in a long time with that kick drum now. So what we need to do is we've already got our, our sequencer routed to the switches, which are, in the on position. So anything that is being sent from the sequencer is going to these modules. All I need to do now is just bring our main volume down for a second while I route these into our mixer. So what I want to do is I want to route the snare drum and the hi-hat into this mixer here so that I can control their channels individually and then feed them into one channel on the mixer. We have 6 channels on the mixer only, so I need to get all of the sounds somewhere in these 6 channels. What we're going to do for that is we're going to go ahead and grab this output here. Actually, I think I can use a shorter one. Yeah. We're going to grab the output of the snare drum. We're going to go to the input 1 of this mixer. And I'm going to take the output of the hi-hat. We're going to go into input 2 of the mixer. Now, all I have to do is route that mixer into our other mixer, into our master mixer, rather. So we're going to go ahead and I think this is going to be maybe one click longer than that one. Cool. Yeah, we're going to route that into input 2 here. And now, as I bring up the volume on the mixer, we don't hear anything yet because I haven't brought up the individual levels for the drums. And then, now those levels are coming through the mixer, but I haven't turned up the mixer channel on the mixer. So here we go. Let's go ahead and I'm going to do a little bit of what's called gain staging. And I'm going to bring the volumes down on the mixer and bring our master level up on the Digitact a little bit. Alright, now we're getting there. using the switches, I can turn any of these drum sounds on and off super easily. This is why I've chosen this module, as it will really help out as far as the live jams are concerned. Full chef mode. Well, all right, get it. I'm gonna bring I think the pitch down on this kick drum a little bit. Not worry about it being tuned to F. I want it lower today. We can adjust the length of the bass drum. We can have it be a really short, really short if we want. We can bring the length of all of these, sounds down, or really just sort of dial some sort of a drum mix in here. Okay, what I want to do is adjust those hi-hats a little bit there, and I want to see if we can get this snare acting like a snare. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off for a moment so that we don't need to struggle with it sounding odd for a second. What I'm just trying to do, I'm not super versed with this sequencer yet, which is why I specifically chose it to put in this system. Whoops. So that I would force myself to get some more time with it. And what I think we need to do, whoops, oh come on now. It's a Euclidean sequencer, but it also allows you to put in the steps manually. And so I have a trouble sometimes figuring out what mode it is in. And there's just never enough hours in the day to totally master this particular one yet. And so there we go. Now I'm getting there. Just need to get it to the offset. We're really close. Oh, come on. Bear with me, everyone. There we go. We've got the 2. I just needed to go to the offset now. Is it one more? There it is. Okay, fantastic. That's the offset mode. And now I can get that snare lined up on the snare mode. Now this sequencer will allow me to create 16 of these 1-bar patterns. And then I can kind of move around between them. But I don't have enough experience with it yet to be able to fully, utilize it in that way. Let me go ahead and adjust this kick drum pattern now. See, what I want to do is that, and then that. Yeah. Oh, I think I have the amount of steps not right there or something. Let's find out. Again, just sorry everyone, bear with me here. I'm just trying to get the sequencer to function. I'm getting an upbeat on the kick drum the second time through the pattern, which would lead me to believe that it thinks that it's only a 15-step pattern, but yet it doesn't. They're all set to 16. Just trying to think this through real fast. I'm confused. Sorry, everyone, as the pattern isn't quite resetting properly, and I'm just trying to figure out how to get around this for the stream, so we can keep moving forward. Bear with me, everyone. I'm doing the best I can. It's live. It's bound to get jiggy. Um, hmm. Maybe what I need to do is adjust. Okay, that's not, okay. That might be what I need to do. Let's see here. There's a way that see, because I've just put this sequencer in, so I might need to just go to those settings. Um, there's a way that we can set the reset out on 5 to maybe be when it stops instead of when it starts, and maybe that's what we need here. So let's see if that makes a difference. No. All right. Let's see here. I thought this might be, the wrong decision to put in for a live stream, but this is the sequencer that I want to use. And again, I did choose it so I would get a little better using it. So forgive me as we have this little hiccup here as I try to, get around this, everyone. We'll get around it. Just give me a moment to figure it out. Yeah, see, it's not resetting properly is the thing. It's acting like this is a 15-step pattern or something. It's not quite doing what I need it to do. Okay, so let me try to think this through then, because, here we are actually on the stream. And I don't have a drum sequencer that's functioning properly, and I don't really understand why yet. All right, I can move this back over. Cool. Oh boy. Okay. I've got my clock, directly in, and the reset directly in. That can't really make any more adjustments. I'm not really sure where to go from here to solve this one. Because I can see on the screen, that it's playing all. No, it's not. It's not playing that last step. It's just not playing that. So it is what I thought. It's like a step issue. It thinks there are. I'll figure it out, you guys. Okay, cool. So it's just a matter of. Come on. Are you. What in the. Oh, come on. All right, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to just click the system off for a second and just try to reset this sequencer. I don't necessarily think that's going to... Yeah, CK sample knows the length of the sequence is off on the first Euclidean pattern there. That's what I'm trying to do, is trying to get this last step to be 16, and then we can move forward. Sorry for the delay, everyone. I just don't have the... perfect understanding of this sequencer, and I definitely apologize for that. On some other live streams, I've had this problem before with this dot. Shoot. No. Almost. No. You go away, please. Oh, I see. I just needed to get it down to. Okay. Almost. Come on. If everybody just wants to relax for a moment or grab a cup of coffee, this might be a really great time to do that, as I struggle with this silly sequencer at this time. Is it that one? No, it's not. And again, please accept my apologies, everyone, for the lameness. All right. I think I'm getting closer. No? Oh, I'm so sorry, you guys. I don't have the last step set correctly, is the thing, as CK Sample has noted. Um, and I'm trying to get that sorted for us. Getting there. Just bear with me. I'll figure it out. Sorry, everyone. Oh, I see. I've got the snares on the wrong dot. Oh, oh my goodness. Boy, this has got to be like the worst thing ever. I'm just struggling, you guys. Sorry about that. They're still not right. And that first step is still not there. It's just not there. Everything else is right. And I'm seeing the dot. All right, let's try it now. I think I just got it. I did, and holy crap. Was that brutal? Oh my god. I'm going to have to really do some timestamp work on that. Sorry, everyone. We just need a basic rhythm that we can write to. God, that was brutal. Oh, sorry, everyone. I'm just trying to get used to this sequencer. It does, you know, quite a few different things, and it's got a couple of different modes. So, you know, I just have to get used to what those modes are. All right. Yeah, I pressed the track button several times to switch parameters. I'm colorblind also. Is something that makes it a little bit more difficult for me on that one. Brutal. Okay, but let's move forward. Seriously, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create hopefully, some sort of a bassline using the MOSAIC oscillator. And what we're going to do, I believe, is we're going to go ahead and just start routing this out. And I'd like to route, let's see, like the square wave. I'm going to need a little bit longer cable, looks like. So I'd like to route the square wave out into the input of our mixer here. And I'd like to route the output of the triangle, the saw wave rather, out. And as well, actually, let's go ahead and just route all of these for now, shall we? Let's route this sine, and then let's route this triangle as well. So I can get volume on any of these parts of the oscillator by turning up the level on the mixer. From the mixer, we need to go into this low-pass filter, and I can use another one of these little impar right angle cables from Luigi's modular for this. We can take, where's my output here? We can take the, stand up here. All right, it's this one here. So we're taking the output of the 4-channel mixer, and we're just routing that, I'm routing that into the input of our low-pass filter so that we can filter, maybe one click shorter. Again, for those of you who missed my introduction to this, I'm testing out some various lengths, excuse me, of these new impar right angle cables from Luigi's modular. So that length I think is going to do really well there to get us from the mixer into the filter. And then from the filter, we need to go into the voltage controlled amplifier. This is the volume for our sound basically. So we're going to take the output of our low pass filter and we're going to route that, maybe the shorter one again. This one? No, it was that one. Maybe up and over then. Yeah, cool. All right, so we're going to route the output of our low-pass filter into the input of our VCA here. Now, the VCA is basically just a volume control. What we'll need to do first, actually, is we'll need to get this oscillator in tune. So if I just bring up, let's see here, we got the square wave on the first one, cool deal. What I want to do is I want to use the same tuner that we used a moment ago to tune the kick drum, and I want to tune this oscillator and just make sure that the oscillator is registering at a C. And we're pretty close there. But let's see here. I've got a coarse tune, I've got a fine tune, I've got an FM amount, and I've got a pulse width modulation amount on this oscillator. We can just adjust this fine tune a tiny little bit until we're getting a C. There we go. We're perfect at a C, and now this oscillator is in tune. So that when we, try to add other sounds to it, whoops, I unplugged the wrong cable there. It'll be in tune with those other sounds. Because in a moment, we're going to record some stuff into the sample drum. And we definitely want that to be in tune because we're going to record some melodic content into the sample drum. Okay. So what we're going to do is, I've got our oscillator in tune. Fantastic. We just need now to be able to use our sequencer to send pitch and gate information out to this oscillator so that we can create a pattern. What we're going to do is we're going to plug in, let's see, I think this will probably get us there. This is our output, our track 1 rather. We're going to take our pitch output, our CV output, and we're going to patch that into the 1 volt per octave input on our oscillator here. That's going to adjust the pitch for that. We're going to take the gate output, which is the amount of time that our sounds are going to be ringing out for, and we're going to use that to trigger this envelope generator here. So we're going to tell the envelope generator when to generate an envelope shape. The envelope shape is going to open up this dual linear VCA. It's going to open up this amplifier in the shape of this envelope that we set here to create the shape and the timbre of our sound. So now we just need to route this envelope into the VCA. I believe we can take a really short one for that. We can take the output and then we can go into the CV1 input. So the envelope is being sent here now into the VCA. I just need to route the output of this VCA into our mixer. So let's see here. I believe we can probably do that. You're going to need a longer cable for sure. Okay, so we're going to take the output now of that VCA, and we're going to go ahead and route that into the first available input here on our mixer, which is input number 3. Okay. Now we're triggering this envelope already. And looks like we're not getting any information to this dual VCA though, because the lights aren't lighting up, which could mean that I've wired that in backwards maybe, even after all of this hard work. So what we'll need to do to figure out what's happening with this VCA is we're going to need to unscrew it. And to be able to do that, we're going to need to be able to power the case down. And to be able to do that, we're going to need to save what I've already created in the .dni Pro sequencer so that we don't struggle through that again. So all I have to do is go to the menu by long pressing the button. I scroll over to the L and S page, right? This is load and save, okay? And let me just, I have a little booklet for it right here. I just want to make sure I'm pressing the right buttons for the load and save. Blah, 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 hit the button again. Okay, so all I need to do is, let's see, we want to save, not load. So I'm going to press the red button. I'm going to pick a slot to save it in. Let's pick that one there. I press the button and it's now saved our pattern in that slot. Supposedly. So supposedly I can get this pattern back if we, boot the power on the case, which we're going to need to do. And I also, let's see, I haven't made any adjustments yet to this sequencer other than the tempo, so we don't need to save anything over here. I am going to click the case off at this time so we can pull this module out. Here we go. All right. So now that we've got the power clicked, we're going to see if maybe I plugged this module in backwards or something like that, because it wasn't seeming to get power just now. I'm glad that we're having at least, one hiccup like this on the stream though, so that you can see that it, not always 100% smooth, but it doesn't necessarily mean the end of the world, because most of these modules are built with the protection if you do plug them in incorrectly. Let's see, did I plug this in incorrectly? I absolutely did. After all that, it's still not right. The red stripe was going the wrong way. So there it was. I screwed up live on the stream. Could have been a lot worse. So definitely thankful that it wasn't a lot worse. We're going to go ahead and try to screw that back in then. Didn't even have to, pull any of the cables out. Just a really easy fix here. Whoops. All right, for those of you who are still hanging out in the chat, thanks for hanging out today. Hopefully we're going to get a little bit of a groove going here in just a moment with more than just some clunky drums. Okay, and let's see how we're doing. Yeah, so now our VCA is lighting up and we're getting some control over the volume of our sound here. So this controls the volume of our sound. Also, the input on the mixer. Okay. But what we want to do is go ahead and now reload the drums that we programmed that I struggled with a minute ago. So we're going to go back to that load and save screen. I'm going to hit load this time. And I'm just going to scroll this back up until I can find the pattern that we saved, hopefully. No, it's not there. Oh my God. That's brutal. Okay, load. All right. That's a no on that. The pattern's not there. But as CK Sample has kindly reminded me, I just need to press these buttons down here at the bottom to scroll through the modes. Just trying to, oh my God. There's that last step, but what I want is I want to put that there. Cool. And then lastly, I just want to put some hats, something we can use for hats here. Okay, so we're getting there. Last step is definitely there. Last step is definitely there, but these need to slide one, and I think it's that. Cool. Okay, so now we've got just a really basic drum pattern happening again, and now we just need to create some sort of a groove. Basically, let me change the shot here so we can get rid of this text blocking it. We just need to adjust, some notes, or maybe like not have all of the notes in the pattern playing, for example. But what we can do is the first thing I want to tell the sequencer is I'd like to tell it, what key we're in. We're going to be writing in the key of F minor pentatonic today. That's my favorite key to write in. So we're going to tell channel 1 of the sequencer that I'm writing in the key of F minor pentatonic. And I'm going to go ahead and just take a moment and do that with all of the channels. Here 3 we're writing in, so I'll let the sequencer know that we're writing in F minor pentatonic, so that whatever channel I'm on, it will just automatically remember that. Now I can go to this magic setting here, and I can tell it some variables rather, and we can get it to do some randomizing for us. creatively, hopefully in a way to maybe come up with a neat, bass line for now. What I'm going to tell it to do is I'm going to tell it to scroll between the notes of like, oh, I don't know, for now we'll just start with F0 and F1, and we're going to do some randomizing and see if it can come up with something creative on its own. Let's see what happens here. What I want to do is go back over to the CV here, and all I need to do, turn that down just a touch, is hit the magic button and then whatever I want to randomize. So I've now just randomized the notes that are being sent to this module, but it didn't actually change the notes. Oh, because I'm not on the right channel. No worries. Here we go. So using this, one of the reasons why I chose this sequencer actually is what we're experiencing right now. This awesome randomization feature. Sometimes I don't necessarily have a part in my head or, even an intention of what kind of music I want to create. So to have like the power of randomization and like chance built into the system like this, definitely something that I am about. Okay, so right now it's playing kind of, a really high pitched part, and we want it to play a lower pitched part than this. That's sounding pretty good right there. Let's go ahead and find out, though, what root note the oscillator is sort of... No, wait. Just trying to think this through here, because I want to sample some other melodic stuff to match with this in just a moment. Do I have... Okay, I got to think this through here real quick, guys. What I want to do is I want to... be able to see what key we're in visually. I'm going to open up Ableton so I can get a visual on the screen of what I'm working with. Until then, let me just mess with this part a little. Yeah, I don't really think we need to mess with that too much, actually. It's got a pretty good start. I'm just bringing up an application, a session rather, in Ableton that will allow me to visualize the audio input so I can try to figure out what key we're in. Give me just one moment here for it to load, hopefully, and we will get moving with some other sounds in the session. Unfortunately, Ableton is now trying to be stuck, which isn't exactly what we're looking for here. Okay, what can we do while we're waiting for that? Let's go ahead and route one of the effects to this mixer, shall we? So we've got a delay and we've got a reverb in this system, and it'd be nice to be able to send any of the sounds in our mixer to either one of these sounds, any one of these effects, I meant to say. Let's go ahead and start with the delay. And what I want to do is this is a stereo mixer, and these are mono effects. So I'm going to use one of these mini Doppio splitter cables from Luigi's Modular. This is probably one of the most rare Eurorack cables that there is, and that we can't actually buy these right now, but he is going to be making some more of these. The other option on using these is using an actual splitter cable, but those tend to bulk up the system a lot. We're going to actually route, let's see, the delay. So I'm going to take the effects send here. Whoops, I need a longer one of these. I'm going to take the effects send A. And what I want to do is I want to route this into the delay, but I want to make sure that we're removing any possible low frequency content from entering that delay. We don't want a whole bunch of like muddiness happening from that delay. So I'm going to plug in this effect send into this high pass filter right here from Bare Modules. Now this is removing any of the low frequency content from going to the delay. It's not going to affect like the timbre of our sound. We're just shaping the timbre of the delay that we're feeding this sound to. Now I need to take an output from that high pass filter and route that into the input of our delay. There we go. And then we just need to take an output from the delay and route that back to the mixer. But again, this is a stereo mixer, so and it's a mono delay, so I need to take the slightly longer one here and route that back in to inputs A. And now we've got on the send A, I've got anything I send there will start going through this delay over here. What I can do is I can turn these sends up. We've got a couple of knobs here for channel 1 and channel 2 because it's a stereo, module. So how much of that is going out now to the delay. And if I press play and say we want to hear that on something like this snare drum, to start getting delay on the snare drum here. We can adjust the dry wet, we can adjust the time, and we can adjust the feedback. We can even get some really unique sounds on that snare drum, right? Cool. What I need to do is we need to get the bass actually like really in tune with the Western scale is the thing. So what I need to do, I believe, is just detune our oscillator by an octave. How we're going to do that is we're going to get, let's take the CV of like output 4, right? Which is output 3, I think, because it's only playing in F. So if I play that, and I turn these drums off, and I take a look at my tuner inside of Ableton. Let's see here. This isn't quite what I'm after. Let's see, I just want to get, okay, what I'm going to do, I think, is turn all of these gates off, except for the first, not gates rather, but only go to F0. Is that because of the magic? Hold on, just check that out. I believe it is because of the magic. So now, no, it's not. Okay, no worries. But then let me fix that again. Okay, cool. So back to there, and then that's fine. Oh, because of what? It's thick. Okay, that's what I want. So now I'm just triggering one note. And let's see here. Now I can start tuning this to get us actually in the Western scale. Give me just a moment here. Okay. That one, yeah. Closer. Almost there. I just need to make it so that when we're hitting an F, that it's actually playing an F. We are really close now. It's almost there. There we go. Okay, fantastic. Now let me bring this down so I can see the stream again. Which camera are we on? Sorry for the delay, everyone. All right. Again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask those in the chat, and I will do my best to answer those as we continue to build this groove up. Now that we've got the oscillator in tune and the drums working, we should be able to actually create a little bit of a interesting groove here pretty quickly. So let's go ahead and try that. What I'm going to do is route the melodic output from the sequencer back to our channel 1. So the part that we're playing now should actually be in the key of F minor. what I want to do is I want to put an envelope on this filter so that we can filter the melodic sound that we're creating, which again, right now, all we're hearing is just a square wave. And if I filter that, we can get that kind of an effect going. But if we run an envelope shape to this filter here, we can get a lot more of an interesting sound. So let's see here. How are we going to accomplish that? What I need to do is I need to route the envelope shape from this generator. I need to route it to the VCA, but I also need to route it to this filter. And I believe it's this one here. And now what we're doing is we're using this exact same envelope shape, and we're sending that to the filter, and we're also sending that to the amplifier. So let's take a listen to what that does to the sound. Let's bring up the resonance on this filter. And let me adjust that volume again. So now the shape that we create with our envelope here is going to not only adjust the length of time that our sound is playing, but it's also affecting that filter envelope. I can adjust how much of the filter we're sending, I can adjust how much of the envelope we're sending to the filter. Okay, and get that type of a sound. Get more of an acidic type of bass sound. Thanks, Connor. I hope that's coming through okay in the volume. Okay, so we've got kind of like an acidy type of bass here. Cool, so there's a little bit of a start here. What we could do now is we could go ahead and maybe see what happens if we run a little bit of that delay sound into this bass line and see if we can't jazz it up a little bit. Let's see if we can do that. If I adjust that delay sound, maybe we can dial something in. Maybe a little bit less feedback on that delay. Maybe take it off the snare. Alright, cool. What let's do now is let's go ahead and try to get some more melodic content happening in this patch by sampling something into the Erica Synths sample drum. Again, this is one of the main reasons why I chose this particular sample module, is because not only does it play back samples, but it also will allow us to record directly into it, which is just super awesome. Not having to grab an SD card, take it over to the computer, and then, sample into the computer, put it on the card, and bring that back over, really does save a lot of steps. I've got here the ASM Hydrosynth, and we're going to sample today a couple of sounds out of the Hydrosynth. At least that is the intention. Excuse me. So let me fire this up. And what we're going to do is we're going to plug this in to the Erica Synths sample drum. Now on the top of the sample drum, one of the inputs here on the bottom row for CV3 input, it actually says recording. And so if we plug in an audio source to that, we can record directly into the module. I'm using a splitter here so I can get both the left and right signals to condense to a one mono signal here at the end of this cable, and I'm routing that into the module. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the library tab. We're going to click that, but instead of loading a sample from the card, we're just going to click the record button, which gets us into the recording screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to click the monitoring button and make sure that's lit up so that we can hear the volume that we're sending in to the unit. We have a range that we can adjust between 1.2 volts all the way up to 10 volts. And this is a range of audio voltage. I can't claim to really understand exactly like what that means exactly, but 1.2 volts is louder and 10 volts is a little bit softer on the input. We're going to go ahead and leave it at 1.2 volts to record into it today. And I've got, let's see here, I've got a couple of patches on the Hydrosynth that I would like to try to record in today and try to work with in a creative way. And so let's see here. What we're going to do, actually maybe best to show you on the overhead, I guess, is we'll need to actually hear the sound that's coming through the module. So we certainly need to plug the output of output 1 into our mixer so that we can hear it. We'll need to also turn that level up on the mixer so that we can hear it. And yeah, whoa, we can already hear it, and we should be able to see it on the screen. You can see that's a pretty hot level that I'm sending in there. So I think what we're going to do is maybe turn down the volume on the Hydrosynth a tiny bit. Trying to get this gain staging on a live stream is always interesting, to say the least. So bear with me, everyone. I hope that's not sounding like way too loud out in the stream. I think I'll maybe turn this volume down a tiny little bit while we record something in. But we can record quite a long sample in, and that's what we're going to do now. Is I'm going to hold down an F minor pad, but I'm going to sweep the cutoff on this as I get stuck on the headphone cable. I'm going to sweep the headphone. I said sweep I'm not really going to sweep the headphone, but I am going to sweep the filter cutoff on the Hydrosynth so that we can get some movement in what I'm recording. After this is recorded, we're going to slice it up inside of the sample drum, and we're going to play it back in a creative, melodic way. So check this out. We're going to go ahead and I'm just going to set the threshold in the module so that when the input level exceeds that threshold level, it starts recording. And then what we're going to do is hit record. Is hit record and hold this chord down. We're recording. And I'm moving that knob really slowly. I'm just moving the filter cutoff really slow to get some movement in the sound, right? And I'm going to just press record again. Okay. And I'm going to try to fix the camera. Okay, good deal. So we've got that sound recorded in. Unfortunately, there's supposed to be a little save button that pops up, and it didn't. So I didn't get to save that. So let's try that again. I'm back in the menu, the recording window, that is. And I'm going to, let's see here, press record, and then try to record that again and see what I did wrong. See if we can't figure that out. Okay, so recording. Here it is. I'm moving that filter cutoff. Sorry if this level is really low. I'm just trying to get some variation in the recording. Whoops, and now I bumped the camera. Okay, let's see if I can fix this camera. And then, oh my gosh, it's still, it's like overdubbing itself or something. Okay, I screwed that up, so we're going to need to go back again and try again. Sorry about that, everyone. And I've also bumped the camera. Okay, so here we go. What we're going to do is we're going to go, just hit record again. Okay, so just hit record again, and then let me try to play that in again. Oh, sorry, everyone, for the extra nonsense here. We're not hearing it because the monitor's not on. Now it is. I'm just moving the cutoff. Oh, we got a little click there. You can even see that one in the recording. I'm not sure where that click came from, but we're going to try again. And thanks for your patience, everyone. Okay. I'm going to go back into the recording. See, every time I go out of the recording screen, it turns the monitoring off. You have to turn it on every time I go back into that record screen, which is kind of a pain, but not really a big deal. So here we are back. I don't know why this is taking so long today. I did this, literally flawlessly yesterday in the testing, so sorry, everyone. And thanks for your patience, as always. And here we go again. We're recording. Things are bound to go a little bit sideways on these live streams, so I appreciate your patience, everyone. Just trying to get a nice variation on the filter cutoff here as I record it in. Some low sections. And some higher frequency sections. Oh, there's another pop. Oh, you can see it right there. You can see that little pop we just heard. Oh, this is brutal. Okay, what we need to do is we need to do it again. I really don't understand where that pop is coming from, but trust me, it's going to be worth it in the end. When this works, we're going to put the monitor back on. We're going to hit record, and I'm going to try it one more time. Unreal. Oh, a couple of really brutal sections in this live stream, you guys. I am sorry for that. We're recording. No click. Come on now. Cross your fingers. No click. No bullshit. Come on. It's got to be long is the thing. Okay. And there we have it. Well, stop. Don't record. Oh. Okay, oh my goodness. I'm obviously doing something wrong there. And, okay. If nothing else that I can do, but try one more time, everyone. Sorry about the delays. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing. Here we go. What is this, like 19th time's a charm? If you're still watching, thank you. If not, there'll be timestamps put into this stream. so that you can avoid some of these long sections on the playback if you want the information still. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I pressed, it stopped recording, but it's not giving me the option to save, like it did yesterday. Um, um, this is definitely part of what we're going to do today. I'm really confused as to why we're not getting it. It might need to go beneath that threshold to stop. Let's just test that out real fast. Let me just hit the chord. We're not hearing it, but if I just stop playing, will it automatically stop recording on its own? No, see, it won't. But then if I hit recording again, now it did it. Okay, so this time we're going to get it for sure then. Unquestionably, it's got to happen. This is the magic time. If you're still watching, just put a little, finger cross and we'll get it this time for sure. Okay, and here we go. Oh my God, brutal. I'm not really seeing anything in the chat. Are we still live, guys? I know this is a brutal section, but if someone could just let me know we're still live, I'd really appreciate that. It's going to be worth it, too. Thanks, Connor. I appreciate that. I pressed the button and it didn't go to the save menu. This is brutal. I really don't understand why it is doing that. Oh, you guys, I'm so sorry about the delay. Oh, this is just awful. I spent like 2 hours learning and testing this whole thing out yesterday. And it worked fine for me, flawlessly, no issues. I don't understand what's happening. I pressed the button and it's not going back to giving me the option to save. Just trying to think this through, you guys, because, it is a live stream and all. It's not just a tune in and watch Dean tech this out. So I'm trying to think of how I can get through this, is the thing. Let's see, we've been going for about 2.5 hours now. Okay, I just want to try one more thing, maybe, if I can, with this, because this is like really part of what I wanted. I mean, this is not part of, but this is really what I wanted to do today. So let's see, if I remove that, I mean, that's not going to make a difference, right? And if I remove that, it's not going to make a difference, right? Then See, I press it there and it immediately goes to the save menu. But when I try to record it, you know, a decent one for us, it doesn't. So let's figure this out, you know? Let's figure this out. Because this module really is awesome. And it really does work. I'm sure this is just user error somehow. Yeah, Wall says it might need to turn on and off again. And thanks for your patience, everyone. Did you see what it did there? It started record. Oh my gosh. I don't know what to do at this point because I don't know really where else to go with the making of the music as far as, you know, this. Because this was the plan. So, okay. So, well, I hate it when things go sideways on a live stream. I'll be honest with you guys. All right. Maybe it's I'm recording too long or something. There we go. Okay, fantastic. I'm not sure. I might need to look into like their recording lengths of time or some sort of nonsense like that. But there's our texture, okay? Oh my gosh. If you're still watching, thank you for hanging out. Oh my god. Okay. But what we need to do now is we need to save that sample, right? And I'm trying to do that. Okay, there we go. So I'm not going to take the time to name it. We're just going to leave it called Recording 01. And we're going to hit OK. And it takes a minute. So you're like, wait a minute, did I click that? See what I mean? And then it's like, oh, loading. Okay, so now we can go back, okay? And we can go back again. And into the actual sample slot here, I can load the sample that we just recorded. Finally. I really don't know why it took that long. I am so sorry for the delays, you guys. Okay, but there we go. Now we have that sample recorded and it's loaded into slot 1. So if I go back here and we go to the sample page itself, okay, now what I can do is I can trim this sample. I can turn the, not trim, but chop it into slices rather, instead of having it be one big long sustained note. Hey, thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. Instead of having it be one long sustained note, we can chop it into different amount of slices. And what I'd like to do, I think, is chop this. Maybe I was going to do 20, but maybe we'll do 10. Maybe we'll just chop what we created into 10 slices here. So if I click the slice button, it just, you know, divides that equally in 10 equal portions. And now I can play those slices back. I'm going to turn the volume up here. In a neat and random type of way. Okay, so what we can do is we can get those slices playing back in time with our groove here. And maybe put some effects on them and whatnot, like this delay that we've got here. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Maybe assign some, you know, reverb in a minute as well. Let's go ahead and what we need is we need a way to trigger these at this time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a gate output, and I'm going to run that into the trigger input. So I'm using a gate output from the black sequencer into the trigger input here of the sample drum. I'm using the third one. So now if I go to the gate page, I can just like maybe put some of these on randomly, kind of a thing, and see what happens. All right, now we're getting the recording to start playing back in time, but we need to adjust these levels for sure. It's a little bit muddy sounding, so what we can do is we can use the built-in effects in the drum module here, and we can assign that to a high pass filter. We can turn the mix all the way up on that, and we can remove some of the low frequency content from this sound here. Whoops, high pass rather. But what's really interesting though is now that we have this sample actually put together and recorded and sliced up, what we can do is we can tell the module that instead of just playing the chops back in a random order, we can say that the CV input of the module should actually trigger when excuse me, not when, but which of these slices is playing. So if I press play now, it's only triggering that one slice. It isn't, choosing which of those slices it's playing back. And we want to set that up so we can control which of those slices it's playing back. So if I take the modulation output of that channel, channel 3, and I route that into the CV input over here, now I can tell the module in the CV page, I can tell it what I'm doing with the CV input. I've already set it up here, so it's adjusting the slice index. I can tell it what sort of a volt input it should accept. Now, that's one of the things about Eurorack that's been kind of a challenge, is that some of the modules have different voltage ratings. Some modules will output from 0 volts to 10 volts. Some will output from 0 volts to 5 volts. Some modules will output negative 5 volts to plus 5 volts. And some modules will output negative 10 volts to plus 10 volts. Knowing what voltage your modulation and your sequencers are putting out is really key to matching them up with things that are expecting a certain kind of voltage. And that's something that we can do here in the sample drum, is we can literally tell it what type of voltage it's expecting at that CV input. I can set it to it's expecting a minus 10 to a plus 10 signal, and that's the kind of signal that I can send it using the modulation output on the black sequencer here. So if we're on, track 3 of the sequencer, and I go into the modulation page, by default, it's allowing me to change the CV output per step of the sequence. So if I don't have any steps moving, it's not going to change. Let me go back and show you on the sample page. If we don't have any modulation coming out here, it's not going to change where that sample slice is playing. Watch this. See, it's just playing that one slice. But if I adjust the CV here, it's going to start adjusting now which slice is playing on which step. So let me just, for instance, randomly adjust, I don't know, some of these steps, right? So that we've got different, these are locked to, each step. So like on step 1, I'm sending a 90. On step 2, I'm sending a negative 90. On step 3, I'm sending a 70, etc. And now these numbers are going to allow us to control where that slice is. If I had recorded a longer sample like I tried to do, and if we had cut that into 20 slices, then each of those voltages would represent one slice. We can go from negative 100 to 90, 80, right, all the way up to plus 100. And so the math there is that's 20 different slots that we have. And those would, have corresponded to the 20 slices if I was able to slice it up that small, which was my original intention. Regardless, this should now see those steps starting to move around as we've programmed that modulation. Now, the implementations of this are huge, because if we were able to record a longer sample or import a longer sample and chop that up into 20 slices, we now literally have 20 little samples that we can access at any time on any step from our sequencer. So, for example, if we had loaded, let's say, 20 individual drum one-shots or sampled them into that, module, we now could access 20 different sounds, one sound on any step of a sequence, on any of those 20 sounds, being melodic sounds or being, one-shot drum sounds. So something like this in combination specifically with the black sequencer, able to send this kind of per step modulation to a module like the sample drum, is a really, really powerful combination. Just to think about that. We could sample 20 different pads into here, and then go back, say, on measure 1 play pad 1, then on pattern 1 play pad 1, but on pattern 2 play pad 2, on pattern 3 play pad 6, etc., etc. So with that combination, we can start getting a lot more sounds out of a system like this, even though it's a smaller system and only has the one, module for samples. I hope that makes sense. But we can just, adjust. We can just adjust the gates that are happening. We could put whatever we want the sample to trigger, we turn a gate on, and whatever slice of that sample we want, we choose a modulation setting. So here I've turned all of the gates off except for that first step, and it only will trigger on the first part of the pattern now, and we can really create. Let's go here. Let's go here. Maybe put one on the end too. Perfect. But here, that one on the very end is almost like a little bit too resonant per se. That's where we can adjust what slice it's playing back here on that last note. It's that one, rather. Yeah. So for example, if I turn down the bass, and let's see, adjust these a little bit. Maybe adjust that a little bit. Send a little bit of those stabs to the delay. Then maybe we start bringing that bass back in. We can mix it a little better now. So this maybe isn't, the best groove of all time per se, but really what I wanted to show you today is not only how we can put the modules in the, in the actual case, but how we can start, getting some stuff, programmed. Obviously, I need to spend quite a bit more time with the .dni Pro sequencer, and that's why it's in here. I obviously need to spend some more time with the sample drum as well, and that's why it's in here. We've got a great question from Douglas in the chat. Can the black sequencer support trigger conditions? And yes, it absolutely can. It has a page for probability if we go in there on any of the 4 tracks. On any of the actual steps, you can adjust, let's see if we go into probability here. We can go from like 100% chance that that step will trigger down to 90, 75, 50% chance, 25% chance that that step will trigger, down to 10% chance that that step will trigger. We also have sort of like the electron type of things to where you can tell it where it's going to trigger. On certain, like only on certain playthroughs of the pattern, like play on the 7th time out of 8, or the 3rd time, or the 4th, you know what I mean? Like as the pattern plays this many numbers, you should play it only once, or stuff like that. So you can really get pretty robust, deep with the probability in here as well. You've got shuffle, and you've also got ratchets, so we can get like those brr, brr type of sounds as well. And one of the main reasons why I chose the black sequencer for this case is the ability to use these modulation outputs separately from the pitch and gate outputs. So for instance, our first track here is sending pitch to our bass oscillator, and also gate out to the envelope, but like the third one here is we're not using the pitch information at all. We're just using the gate information as triggers to trigger the drum machine, and then we can use the modulation to to program that modulation to choose the samples. One of the neat things about the sequencer as well is that it doesn't have to be this type of per step modulation. Each of these 4 tracks, you can change the type of modulation that's within that track by just going to the setup. We have a regular CV, which is what we've been using, but you can also use a CV slide, where instead of having those just squares that it kind of allows you to have lines between 2 points. We've got CV notes, which you can add more note information. You can create an envelope from the modulation. Here's the decay envelope. Here's an attack, sustain, release envelope that we could use here. There's a full ADSR envelope that we could assign out of the modulation. We could get an LFO out of it if we wanted to. Granted, we have 2 LFOs in the case already that we're not using right now. We could get a stepped LFO, and we could also use the modulation to trigger the drum sounds. So for example, if I didn't want to use the TNI Pro sequencer, I could use these modulation outputs to trigger drums. For example, even though our first track is our first channel is sequencing the melodics, if I select channel 1 and I scroll over to the modulation and I tell it that I want it to be triggers, now it's drum triggers that are coming out of that first output. So I could turn any of these steps on that I want and just send triggers out and bypass this sequencer at all. But that, would take 3 of my channels on the sequencer for drums, and I really can't afford that yet. So I've really got to spend more time with this sequencer and learn the ins and outs of it. But just that's kind of the whole fun of Eurorack, is that it's not always going to be exactly the same type of patch. I'm not always going to patch the system in the same way. I mean, we didn't use any of the LFOs yet. We didn't use the pluck string today. We didn't use the side chain. It depends on what genres we're trying to program, but I wanted to have we didn't use, another oscillator for the Osiris here. But I wanted to have something that I really could do a little bit of everything with. And that's what I think we've got here. We can sample into it. We can load samples. I've got 2 different oscillators for creating, basses and leads. Then we've got that nice plucked string oscillator, which we didn't listen to today, but it's really great for ambient stuff and creating down-tempo stuff as well. So I think that's going to pretty much start to wrap it up for today, as we finally did get through all of those elements of, actually programming some drums, actually sampling finally into the Erica sample drum there. I'm really not sure what I was doing wrong, because yesterday I was able to record longer recordings into it without issue. So I totally apologize for those hiccups in the stream today, guys. But that is bound to happen, I guess, on a live stream. So if anybody does have, any lingering questions of any kind, I think now would be a really great time to get those into the chat, as we are going to go ahead and get ready to wrap it up. We've been streaming for just about 3 hours. Let's hear this little groove we tried to put together one more time. Yeah. actually, before we wrap it up today, let's just try to do one more sampled sound into the Erica Synths sample drum. I know I'm a glutton for punishment, right? But I do have another sound that we could probably sample in here and would probably sound pretty cool to maybe wrap up this stream. What let's do is the Erica sample drum allows us to sample two samples. It has a slot for sample one. You just push the switch up to the up position, or we can just flip that switch down to the down position, and we can sample into the second slot. I have another sound here that I wrote down. It's like it's a number 101 or something, and this sound is a pretty cool sound, and maybe we could get this going as well. So what we can do is, let's see here, we want to go into the library page, but instead of loading a sample, we just want to go record, and there we go. For some reason it leaves that monitor off by default, so we always need to kind of turn that on. But here's what this sound sounds like. Hopefully we should hear it, or maybe I need to plug an output. Yeah, I need to plug an output from the module's output number 2 into our mixer still, so we can hear this. There we go. And put that in channel 6 of our mixer and turn that up a little. Okay, we're not hearing it monitoring. Why not? There we go. Awesome. So this is, I'm just going to let that ring out. There's just a chord. Whoops, and I've screwed the camera again. All right, this is just a chord stab that I think might sound cool in this little beat we're putting together here. All right, just fix that a little. That's all right. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and grab that. So I'm going to hit record, and we're going to get it. We're going to let it ring out all the way. All the way. All right. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Big John. Go record. The chord stab, Douglas, is just, I'm playing a chord off of the Hydra synth over here on the left. I've got a couple of the some patches here that I'm kind of fond of. But that's the bonus, is that, you know, the module being able to sample into it, even though it's mono, it's still just, you know, a really cool thing to be able to sample without having to, like, go to the computer and load, you know, stuff onto a memory card and load it that way. Okay, cool. But we did get that hit recorded. Yeah, awesome. That's a big old hit. And we're going to go ahead and save. What is that? This one? Or is it this one? Yeah, cool. And then we're going to hit. We're not going to label that for now. Just save it. Okay, fantastic. So that was easy. That, you know, sampled no problem. Now we can go ahead and load that sample that we just recorded into slot number 2. So I'm just going to scroll down to the recording folder. We're going to grab that recording number 2. And what we can do is I can take another output here from the, again, this is why I chose the black sequencer, because of these extra modulation outputs that are allowing me to sequence the samples like this. We've got 2 channels for melodic, so I can sequence like a bass and like a lead, and then these other channels here are for the 2 channels on the sample drum. And then of course the .D&I Pro is for the, you know, the main drums. But if I run this into trigger number 2 now, this is mod out for channel number 4. And what we're going to do is we're just going to turn that from the regular modulation output into the triggers. So all I have to do is go setup and modulation while I've got, you know, the track highlighted that I want, and I just turn that into triggers, and that's all there is to it. Now if I just go on the modulation page, here are, you know, the triggers, and I can, you know, put these anywhere I want. Yeah. And what I want to do, let's bring this volume down, but what I want to do is I want to make this pattern now a 2-bar pattern so that the chord stab, you know, rings out a little bit. We're going to go ahead and save where we're at now, and we're going to go to the direction and range, and instead of making it a 16 beat pattern, we're going to make this a 32 beat pattern. So now it's a 2-bar pattern. We're going to go ahead and save that at this time. And if I'm not mistaken, we're going to need to copy, let's see here, that information over to, oh, I guess we won't because it's just a rest. Let's see here. Yeah. And what we can do is maybe bring that, where's that coming in here? Yeah. Again, this probably isn't necessarily, the best mix of sounds, in the history of ever, but I just wanted to show you how we can quickly and easily just add another sound, by sampling into the sample drum. Now, what's really cool, though, is that I could record a whole bunch of different variations of that chord sample, and then we could trigger those variations the same way that we did using the modulation output, to select which slice we were getting on that elongated sample. We can have multiple samples in the same slot and then just trigger those samples individually the exact same way. So in theory I could record in like 20 variations of that chord stab, and then we could have access to each one of those, or they could be different chords. It could be an A minor and then the next one could be a C minor, and now we're creating a chord progression based on those samples. So I really think the potential as far as what I'm going to be able to do with this system is actually, really, really dramatic. I'll be able to create some down-tempo stuff, maybe put a drum loop in the sample drum, slot, slice that up, put some, drums over it, create a bass line, bring in the plucked string through a lot of reverb, stuff like that, or, maybe chop up drum and bass breaks in the sample drum, not just using it for individual samples, not just using it for slices. But we can really get a lot of variation here. Again, I can turn those drums on and off in real time at any time using those switches that we set up. Start, actually jamming with the system. That's a great question. Douglas says, how does the Hydrasynth compare to the Peak? I don't have the Peak, and I haven't actually, laid hands on it personally, so I can't really make that comparison. But speaking for the Hydrasynth, this is what I can say. When the Hydrasynth came out, like a year or so ago, I watched a lot of the YouTube videos on it, and I really didn't gel with the sound that I heard from it. And I didn't really think much more of it at that time. But I don't know, it was some different demo that I was watching maybe 3 or 4 months ago. I can't remember, who it was. I'd love to credit whoever it was. But they made it sound so amazing that it really made me take another look at the Hydrasynth. And I really started taking a look at what's actually inside of it and what it can do. And as a sound designer, it's an unstoppable beast of a synth. Let me just say it that way. And so, yeah, I went ahead and invested in it, and I haven't done the sound design in it yet. There's only so many hours in the day, but the sounds that are coming out of it are just amazing. I'm in love with it. It's rich, it's fat, it's dreamy, it's everything I wanted it to be. I don't know 100% what was up with the sound quality, of the demos that I watched in the beginning to kind of turn me off to the sound quality of it. But in my personal opinion, that was a mistake because the sound quality is fantastic. So I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I'll just, blame it on the YouTube algorithm or whatnot. That doesn't make everything sound great. But in person, it's buttery, it's rich, it's smooth, it's fat, it's amazing. Now, everybody who I know who has either played with the Peak or owns the Peak says the exact same thing about the Peak. these are both really high level, top of the line synthesizers. We all love Novation. I'm sure the Peak is fantastic as well. If I had to choose between the two, I'd probably, choose the Hydrasynth just because of all of the stuff we can do with the wavetables that are inside of it. But that doesn't mean that the Peak isn't like a dreamy and fantastic, beautiful synthesizer as well. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the sample drum. Well, I think you probably get a lot of use out of that. I can't really pronounce your name. Thank you, Mariche, for the case. Again, I had this custom built. I'm not a woodworker, but the whole point was to be able to get a case that would allow me to put lots of these MOSAIC modules in it. I know we didn't really get into using the case and like creating like the most beautiful piece of music today ever, but based on the stream went so long, and that I was having such a problem with the D&I Pro sequencer and then sampling into the sample drum, kind of pushed us into the longer sessions. I hope some of you guys, are interested enough in Eurorack to keep tuning in to some of these, live streams. I know Eurorack's not for everyone. It's, kind of been the final frontier for me. But as I've gotten more and more into it, obviously I've just gotten more and more into it. It's really fun to play with. It is certainly not, the best way to make music or the only way to make music. It's certainly not the way to make the best music. None of those things. It's just another way. And those of you who know my channel know that I don't necessarily choose any particular workflow. I kind of claim all of the workflows. I just really like playing with these tools. That's why I've chosen this as my career as a sound designer. All right, so not bad, not the best groove ever, but definitely the system is up and running now, and I can spend the time getting a little bit more familiar with it and finessing these things as well. Here I can get that snare. It's like Opie needs to go outside as well. Hang on, broski. Hey, buddy, I'll let you outside. Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and call it. Hey, what's up, Will? Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me on these live streams. And until next time, take care of each other, everyone. All right. Thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate it. Okay, where are we here? Let's see. All right, here we go. Until next week. I mean, maybe not next week, but next time. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. I appreciate it.